we're live. Oh, hello and welcome to What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and we are here for a very special live episode of What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. This time we, like every single week, will be covering the slate for gambling purposes. This is your first time joining us every single week. James and I go head to head. Now, I get it. He's been too rich and famous to come to a lot of these. We tried to get a guest host in today. Didn't work out. We're doing it after dark tonight on a Friday night, getting this episode out to you. So you're welcome. That's why we're doing it. And if it goes well, maybe we'll do it again in the near future. We usually recap last week, so we will do that very quickly. But I want to talk about something else instead. James won 2 weeks in a row now. He is hot as he has ever been. Unfortunately for him, I went 5-0 to start this season. So he has got some catching up to do at the end of the regular season. Whoever has the most wins in our week-to-week matchup wins the hammer of Truth and Justice, which I am currently the owner of, which is good news for me, good news for you if you're watching along at home. We usually do a recap of last week. We both did fine. I was sick. I was 3-3, so I lost on the VIG, and he beat me. He was also 3-3, but he had a couple of plus money line bets, which edged me out in our matchup. So shout out to him and shout out to me for still being plus money on the season, which is always good news. The reason I don't want to go into a in-depth recap of what happened last week, because I want to go over, obviously, the big scandal that everybody is talking about, which is the basketball scandal, where if you haven't found out, if you've been under a rock for the last couple of days, a lot of big-time former players got arrested on charges for illegal gambling rings with mafia ties and actually fixing games, which is why I think I want to talk about it, because I was born in 1994, which happens to be the same year that Tim Donaghy started reffing in the NBA. And I watched basketball. I was a big basketball fan, but I got to a point where I'm like, my small little adolescent brain could tell these were rigged games. These were not honest competitions that I was seeing in front of my eyes. And before that reason, I'm like, hey, these guys, these referees have way too much power in determining who wins and who loses these games. So for that reason, I'm going to stop watching, which is why I think it's important for us to get ahead of it in the NFL, because I like the NFL and I want to keep watching the NFL. I want to keep caring about the NFL, and I want my kids to care about the NFL, and I want their kids to care about the NFL, because I think it's a net positive in society. And I think the NFL might be going down the wrong road with these Kansas City Chiefs and highly rated football teams in terms of TV viewership. Like I said, I think a lot of people are on my same wavelength with the NBA, having watched them in the past. In the early 2000s, ratings have only plummeted. Since then, they have never been lower. I do think 40 people got arrested, which isn't enough, considering what we know about the Luka Doncic trade that happened last year, where the Mavericks, for no reason, gave up Luka Doncic, the future, the current, the past of their organization. Young, too. Traded him for basically nothing. And then all of a sudden, for randomness sake, 1.8% chance they get the first overall pick. Mavs get the first overall pick. And this is coming off the heels of last season when Pat McAfee show had LeBron James on, where LeBron James admitted that he got drafted by his hometown Cleveland Cavaliers, and it was all sketchy, fugazi. He understood the assignment, and he ended up there. Good for him, but not good for us, because we know the NBA is rigged, and I don't want the NFL to go down that road. So when the Chiefs played the Lions and the Chiefs didn't get a single penalty called all against them all game, it was very clear the fix was in, especially when we had a reverse line movement, something I talked about already a couple of weeks ago when it happened, and I clipped it together, had something on TikTok, and I don't know. I'll be honest, I didn't really read the TikTok comment sections. I try not to, especially on that platform for obvious reasons. But I don't think they were very happy with what I had to say. I think they were pretty skeptical of what the Kansas City Chiefs were doing and what the referees were doing for those Kansas City Chiefs in that win against the Detroit Lions. I said it was rigged. I think anybody who watched it knew it was rigged. And I think it was not the plan. It was kind of plan B or plan C for the league. Let me explain. The week prior to that game, the Kansas City Chiefs were going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the referees basically in that game spotted the Chiefs 21 points. Wasn't enough because there was a massive pick six, 99-yard pick six, got taken back, was the cleanest pick six of all time. Couldn't have called a penalty on it. Would have been impossible for the refs to get involved there without being too obvious. So the league meant for the Kansas City Chiefs to win that one. Didn't work out for them. So what do? They got the Lions next week. Lions are 4-1 at the time. And Lions can afford to lose one here. They're still going to make the playoffs, which they do care about because the Lions actually beat the Chiefs in the TV ratings last year. It was Lions number 1, Chiefs number 2, which was a big factor in the study that got released where they said, hey, the Kansas City Chiefs, they benefited from favorable referee calls in the past because they had good ratings, and the Patriots, who did not have good TV ratings, actually benefited less from referee calls in their dynasty run compared to the Chiefs dynasty run over the past decade or so. So it all makes sense. It is rigged. The NFL, I think, is actively either grooming or purposefully basically telling these referees, hey, let these Kansas City Chiefs win this one against the Lions. With that being said, I don't know who wins these games at the end of the day, but I do know the NFL referees and the NFL front office got the Lions back on their side by basically gifting them the game against the Buccaneers. Again, I don't think the Lions would have needed help winning that game against the Buccaneers, but the referees made it a no-doubter. Every close call, the tripping on the sack, the 4th down that got overturned, was originally called a first down to Cade Otton, was overturned to the Detroit Lions. Some favorable calls. The only bad call you could say that was against the Lions that whole game would have been the Jamison Williams missed push-off. It wasn't a push-off. Referees called it a push-off, whatever. Maybe that one referee didn't get the assignment, which was, hey, Lions got to win this one. We stole one last week with them at Kansas City, and we got to get things even now. So I think that's what happened. I think anybody who's been paying close attention to the Kansas City Chiefs for the past 3 weeks would tell you the same thing, because there would have been, if they would have lost that Lions game, they would have been outside of playoff contention. It would be the Chargers all the way, and we'd be looking at a road game, maybe a wild card matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is not what the league wants. And the whole reason I care about this is because I want the game to have integrity going forward. And obviously, history repeats itself, right? We've seen what happened in basketball again. Second time they've had a big scandal like this in my lifetime. And we've seen what's happened with the Chiefs over the past decade, benefiting from these, kind of Mickey Mouse penalties. And then when they make it to the Super Bowl last year, which they probably didn't deserve to make it to because they cheated with the referees throughout the playoffs, they got blown out because Philadelphia Eagles, good for business, great TV ratings, one of the top 10 in the list of TV ratings from last year. So that's good news for them. And B, there's no real reason for the referees to favor the Chiefs in the Super Bowl because it's over. Doesn't matter who wins Super Bowl. Everyone's already watching. Biggest event of the year, no matter what. So no one really cares. And it's probably better for business that the Kansas City Chiefs don't win this one. So there's a big story leading up to next season for them to make another run, especially with another great Taylor Swift album, which sounded way different from every other Taylor Swift album that I've ever listened to. It was very unique and not at all just copy and paste from her last 18 albums. So good shout out to Taylor Swift. Good shout out to Travis Kelce. Good shout out to the Chiefs. I see what you're doing. I'm happy as a Lions fan that the Lions are going to get favorable treatment from the referees, but I'm not happy because I want integrity of the football game and I want this stuff fixed moving forward, Roger Goodell, Amantia, and I just want to get that stuff out there. With that being said, I don't think that really affects gambling. I'm going to keep my eye on the TV ratings for each of these teams going forward as a part of my handicap, especially when there's reverse line movement and some funny business going on in the percent money on each team. Lines moving in the opposite direction, lines not moving. I'm going to pay closer attention to that moving forward. But either way, I mean, even with all this bullshit going on last year, I hit at a great rate in terms of gambling. I was over 60%. I was plus 20 units in the NFL in the regular season last year. So if you are just hopping on board, I always recommend give me 3 weeks, give me a good enough sample size to prove myself to you. With that being said, James is hot, so maybe you trail him instead. And I will reveal James's picks at the end of the episode, so stay tuned to that. Usually we go back and forth. I never know his picks beforehand. He tells me live on screen. I react to it. I call him an idiot, and I tell him why he's dumb. Or sometimes we agree. Moving on to our slate for this week in the NFL. And like always, whenever we get to talking about the bets, we got to bring the money train in. And some very creamy eggnog that I am sipping on today. We got the money train rolling in. We got a big slate today from James. I have a force bet on all of these games, which makes my 60% last year so impressive. I've got a force bet in all of these games. He has a pick on each of these games. I don't know what it is, and I have to make my pick and hope for the best. And it's gone pretty well so far. Bills, Panthers is our first game on the slate. The Panthers are at home getting 7 or 7.5 points. Shop your lines. We'll shop those lines for you. If the lines change by the time you are listening to this broadcast, we don't usually recommend you following us if the line moves, for example, through a key number for this one. So, for example, let's say I pick the Panthers at plus 7.5 on this game. If the line goes down to 6.5, that's going to be a no bet out of me. I wouldn't recommend following me on that one. This will be over under 46 or 46.5 points. The over under is set pretty low for this one, but we got pretty darn good weather as the cat feeder is going out. Meatloaf, the Dynasty Cat, is joining us here. Percent money, speaking of which, 84% of the money on the Bills spread for this one, which makes me want to bet on the Panthers. So let's figure out how to bet on the Panthers. Bills are off of a bye and off of a 2-game losing streak. They lost to the Falcons. They lost to the Patriots. Not quality losses, if you ask me. Bills, with the Bills lost to the Falcons and the Panthers blew them out in week 2. The Bills lost to the Pats. The Panthers got blown out by the Patriots. So kind of mix match in terms of common opponents there. Andy Dalton has the football for this one. I think whenever we have a veteran coming in, especially if it's his first start of the season, he is going to feed his number one target. And of course, that is Cabela McMillan, a.k.a. T-Mac, a.k.a. Tedero McMillan, not a.k.a. Tet McMillan. You're not allowed to call him that. His mom said that, so don't call him that. I think he's going to feed Tet McMillan. These teams are a little bit closer than you think. And there's a big matchup here that's not good for the Bills. The Panthers are the 4th best run offense based off of my metrics this season in the NFL. The Bills are the 7th worst in run defense in the NFL. So all I need is the Panthers at home to keep it close. So I'm going to bet on that and give me the Panthers at plus 7.5. Moving on to our next game on our slate. It's going to be an easy one. We got the Bears and the Ravens. The Ravens are at home, and they are 7 or 7.5 point favorites. The over-under set to 49.5 or 50. Another perfect weather game. Feels like all the games that I handicapped were perfect weather kind of across the board. We'll see if that changes. Bears have cluster injuries at corner. Lamar Jackson is a go. Ravens, with Lamar Jackson this season, have been a dead nuts over team. We've already covered why. They've gone over, and I've said if they're going up against an average offense, the over-under has to be set to 57 to get me off of it. This over-under set to 49.5. So I'm going to take the over 49.5 in the Bears-Ravens game Sunday at noon. Moving on to Dolphins at the Falcons. The Falcons are 7.5-point favorites at home. The over-under is set to 44.5 or 45. Dolphins are pretty healthy for this one, which is pretty good. And Falcons, pretty lucky so far this season. They have 10th best turnover differential. First ranked in number of penalties, despite having poor TV ratings. They were one of the bottom 5 in TV ratings last season. So the NFL isn't going to give them any favors. I get it. Dolphins aren't very highly rated either in TV, but neither are the Falcons. So there's not going to be any funny business going on here. Statistically, my metrics wise, pretty similar. Offensively, Falcons obviously have a much better defense, although I will admit it's not elite this year. Tua, of course, playing in a dome, much better than Tua playing outdoors in any weather. So I like that. The Dolphins lost against the Panthers, which was their common opponent with the Falcons, but the Falcons got blown out by the Panthers. So give me the Dolphins at plus 7.5 in Atlanta. Moving on to our next game on our slate, the Jets at the Bengals. Bengals are 6 or 6.5-point favorites at home. The over-under set to 44.5 points. Perfect weather game. Point differential, points per game, basically the same for these two teams. 82% of the money is on the Bengals spread. Bengals statistically have a much worse defense. Offensively, they're pretty similar. I don't know who's playing quarterback for the Jets. Nobody does because it's a competitive advantage for Aaron Glenn, who's obviously a genius, super genius. I mean, he was so smart that he, for the Lions last year, just called man every single play, blitz sometimes, and got himself a head coaching job because of it, because he's a boisterous, charismatic defensive coordinator, first-time head coach. So, of course, the Jets had to mix it up a little bit and replace Robert Saleh, who is a boisterous, charismatic defensive coordinator turned first-time head coach. So, of course, the Jets, being a competent organization that they are doing the right thing there by hiring Aaron Glenn as their head coach this season. Just smart, brilliant stuff over there for the Jets. But good news, I'm obviously joking, but good news is Bengals are also incompetent. I get it. Joe Flacco is under center, and they're relatively healthy on offense at least, but not healthy enough to cover 6.5 against the Jets. If they do get a new quarterback, Tyrod, over there in the Jets, I think that will bump them up. You usually get like a bump up if a starting quarterback is benched. Usually a team plays a little bit harder that week for that new quarterback. So for that reason, give me the Jets and give me 6.5 points. Big slate from James, which means I'm probably going 7-0 this week. So good news for us. 49ers at Texans, the one close game I think we have on this slate, or the closest spread that we have on this slate. The Texans are 1.5 or 2.5 point favorites at home. The over is set to 41.5 or 42.5. Nico is hurt. Christian Kirk is out. Also for the 49ers, Pearsall and Purdy is out, but I love Mac Jones, the most accurate college quarterback in college quarterbacking history. I think he's pretty good, but that's just what I think. The Texans are very lucky with turnovers despite not being a good TV draw, so I don't expect that to have any funny business in this one. We got a close game, close spread. One of the first things I'm going to look at is quarterback. Obviously, I'd say it's pretty much a wash for this one. CJ Stroud versus Mac Jones. Then, of course, I'm going to take a quick little look at the head coach because I want to bet on the better head coach in a close matchup, and that is obviously Shanahan on the 49ers side, far and above whatever high IQ guy is coaching for the Texans. So give me the 49ers on the road, getting 2.5 points. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Kyle Shanahan getting 2.5 points against a shitty team. Love it. Moving on to our penultimate game. It's Sunday night. The Packers at the Steelers. Steelers at home are getting 2.5 or 3 points. The over-under set to 45.5. 81% of the money on the Steelers. 89% of the money on the over 45.5. So I had to figure out a way to bet against one of those. Common opponent, Bengals. Packers win. Steelers lose. Packers, much better offense and much better defense per my metrics, per my stats. So we got a much better team on the road against the Steelers. Should be a fine weather game. A little bit brisk for this one, but the weather should be fine. So I'm going to bet against the public money, and I'm going to take the Packers at -2.5 points. Moving on to our final game. It's Monday night. The Commanders at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 11.5 or 12.5 point favorites. The over-under set to 47.5 or 48.5 points. Daniels probably out for this one. It is going to be, again, a pretty brisk game over there in Kansas City. But other than that, pretty darn good weather. 75% of the money is on the Kansas City Chiefs spread at -12.5. The public thinks this is going to be a blowout. I don't know about that. Commanders aren't bad with Mariota, Heisman winner, of course, Marcus Mariota backing up Jaden Daniels over there in Washington. Played well without Jaden earlier this season already. Chiefs are a better team. I have to admit they're a better team. Of course they are. They're 12.5 point favorites at home. Of course they're a better team. But I don't think they are as good enough of a team. I don't think the delta is high enough for them to be 12.5 point favorites at home, despite the quarterback injury for the Washington Commanders. This is going to be, I think, a close game because close games are good for TV ratings. And these Chiefs are a better team than the Commanders. They don't need the referees to get involved. All they need is to win by 6 or 7 points. And the spread's at 12.5. So give me the Commanders getting 12.5 points on the road. I like Marcus Mariota. And I'll be right back. We are live, of course, so I'll be right back. And I'm going to get you guys James's picks on this slate. And I'm back. James sends me an invisible ink message on iMessenger. So we are going to open up iMessenger on my Apple iPhone, and we are going to see what James has picked for these games. First, of course, be the Bills and the Panthers. And James has the Panthers at +7.5 points, which is an agreement out of us to start the podcast. In the next game, the Bears and the Ravens. James has the Bears money line, a +230 recommendation out of James over there. Of course, I have the over 49.5. That's easy peasy, lemon squeezy bet. Bears, Ravens over. So I highly recommend you following me on that one, despite James being pretty hot here early on. Next game we had, of course, the Dolphins at the Falcons. James has picked another one. Dolphins +310. That's a slant agreement. I have Dolphins at +7.5 points. So we are simpatico on a lot of these blowout potential games so far. Jets, Bengals. James has the Jets at +260. Another +260 bet out of James. Good for him. That's another agreement. I have Jets at +6.5 points. The 49ers and the Texans. Of course, James going with the 49ers at +110. Another agreement. This is the most agreements that we've ever had in podcast history. Basically agreeing on everything, disagreeing on nothing so far. By the way, the only thing we sort of even disagree on is that Ravens game where I have the over and he does not. Next up on the slate here, Packers and Steelers. James has a pick on the Steelers at +3. I have the opposite, so that's a disagreement. I have Packers at -2.5, so this whole week could come down to that, or really what it's going to come down to is I'm going to cover these bets, and James is going to win his money line bets is really what's going to happen. Don't bet money line. I recommend against it in all cases. And KC Washington game, he has the over 47 points, which I don't mind. It's not a disagreement. I have Commanders at +12 points. So we straight up agreed on the Panthers at +7.5 points. That's a noon game. That's against the Bills coming off of a bye. I don't love that, if I'm entirely honest, but maybe because I don't love it, we should bet it. We also sort of agreed on the Dolphins against the Falcons. But you know what? You know what I think we should do here? The one bet that didn't make any sense, I literally checked to see if Joe Burrow was active for this one because the line didn't make that much sense at all, was the Jets and the Bengals. James has Jets at +260. I have Jets at +6.5, which will be our best bet of the week. Jets +6.5. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. If your first time riding with me, ride with me for about 3 weeks. I promise you, you'll be happy when it's done. Thank you. Good night.